wanting to watch this on YouTube, so we'll see.
They don't get 10 points.
What's that?
They
Do not get 10 points for sure. So yeah, so we're, so some of the stuff, there's a little bit in the beginning, because people have a lot of questions, so we might have to just fly over that. We'll see how it goes. Are we on?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so speaker series number 1. So if you were here the last time, so I do have, like, it's all going to be up there if you guys can. Yeah. So that's where you guys can look if you're trying to follow along. So I just have a slide presentation. It's easier for me to speak that way. So we started our challenge. So we were in 1 week into our challenge. So first off, so I wanted to ask people, like, so expectations versus reality. Is it doable? Are you all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, where's it going? So is everybody doing questions, anything like that before I get started? So what I'm hearing is a couple of things where people are having a hard time with water, or they're having a hard time with their food, and they're like, well, if I do this, does that mean I get 0? And if I don't get my water at 128, do I get no points for that? Or all the different things, like in terms of protein, if I didn't quite hit my protein goal, do I get 0? It depends what your goal was, right? And so for me, if I don't hit my water, yeah, because I can hit my water, so then I would get no points for that. But if you're somebody, and I've tried to talk to people, if you're somebody that's having a hard time getting water, and you're like, okay, and I've talked to them and said, if it's not 128, let's aim for like 100 or 75. So if we had like, we were getting 50 ounces of water, and I'm all of a sudden saying you got to get 128, I get it, that's hard. And so I've really tried to make this challenge and tried to be telling people this is supposed to be for you. So the challenge is, this is different than what I've done in the past, where I'm like, you can't have gluten, or you can't have this, or you have to do this. The only thing that I really said nutrition-wise is you have to really try to get your protein. But then I've told people, like, if 0.7 is just not doable for you right at this moment in time, let's aim for 0.7. And then, yeah, if you're still trying to work, like if you're like, okay, I'm trying to get 0.5 grams per pound of body weight, and you're doing that, and that's your goal with a transition to hopefully get to 0.7, then you should be getting points for that. And I know most people are like, I don't care about the points, but the points, what those do is it's an accountability thing, and it makes you feel good about yourself when you're like, okay, I did that today, I get that point for that. So it's not about, like, I'm assuming for most people that I win the challenge. It's that, are you winning for yourself? And that's what I want to make sure people understand. So those that are going to watch it on YouTube, if you're having trouble, don't quit. Don't be like, oh my God, I can't get the water, so I'm just going to quit because I can't get the water. You all signed up. We had 45 people signing up for this, which is fantastic. But after week 1, if something's not going well for you, or a couple things, then let's just figure out what that is for you and how you're going to get better. Because at the end of the day, at the end of 75 days, I don't want you to go back to where you were, or I don't want you to quit in a week or in 2 weeks, because that got us nowhere, got you nowhere, and got me nowhere in terms of trying to help you. So all of this is designed so that hopefully you can, if you can't be perfect the first day, you can transition to be better the last day, so that on day 76, you're not like, well, thank God that's done, I'm not doing that ever again. Because all of this is meant, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is to help you build a better, healthier, longer life and lifespan. So if you have any of those questions, anybody that's listening at home, if you have any of those questions, please don't be sitting there suffering in silence. Ask me. I'm happy to meet you wherever that is. This is meant to be for you, not for me. The one thing I was going to, my phone's I talked about that Streaks app. So a few people have asked me about it since we talked about it. It's really good. So yes, you have to pay $5 for it, but it's like one time, you don't pay a monthly fee or anything like that. It really is a good accountability thing, and I just find, that's what I said in the first meeting, that when we did 75 Hard and there was this app that you got to check off your boxes, when you went to sleep at night and were like, got it, done, you just had this really good sense of accomplishment for yourself. Not that I was winning a challenge, but like, wow, that was a hard day. I barely got it, but I did it. I finished it. And it breeds like better the next day for you, right? You're like, wow, that was good. So if you aren't using it and you're struggling to try to sort of put everything in place for yourself, it's a really good app. I'm not selling the app, obviously. I don't get any money for it, but it is beneficial. It will help you. So if you're struggling that way as well, okay? All right, so today we are gonna, so I told you that this speaker series was gonna be based on the book Outlive. So then a few of you went and bought it and then immediately were like, I can't read that, it's really hard. And it is, he's a brilliant man. And I love listening to him. And I mean, I have a science background, I'm not a doctor by any means, but I have a science background, and even I sometimes have a hard time understanding what he's saying. So it's a great book if you want to listen to it or read it. But the reason I'm doing this speaker series is it's a great tool for longevity, but it's just hard to understand because it's so sciencey. So then I'm trying to go sort of piece by piece over the course of these 5 speaker series to explain the book for you. So then if you don't have to go, or you shouldn't have to go out and buy it. But if you did, good luck. And his podcasts are fantastic. But again, sometimes you're just like, so I got to say these cue words as we're going through so that people that are listening have to be able to say what the cue words are. So the first one is football sucks. So that's our first cue word. Okay, so anyways, so Outlive is the book. If you want to read it or if you want to follow his podcast, it's a great podcast. It's called The Drive. Some of them are easy to listen to, but some of them, again, get super sciencey. And so then I'm trying to sort of dumb it down for people. So we're talking about longevity and what is longevity. So longevity is really 2 things. It's how long you're going to live, and then really how well are you going to live. And that's what this whole challenge is about. That's really how I like run my gym, and that's really, even when I was a nurse working in the hospitals, that's how I always approach things. Was I just would rather see how well people are going to live versus how long with illness and all that kind of stuff. So longevity is really talking about, and what we're going to focus on is how well you will live in terms of, and then how long as well. None of us want to live, I think we would all agree, we don't want to live to be 100 in a nursing home, in a wheelchair with dementia. Nobody wants to live to 90 or 95. But if I can live to 90, and still be at home and hiking or going for walks or whatever, then of course I think we would all say, yeah, that's how I want to live. Unfortunately, we look around and most people don't get that choice when they get older. Okay, so there's 2 different types of medicine that he talks about. It's called medicine 2.0 and medicine 3.0. He also talks about medicine 1.0, but it's sort of the evolution of healthcare from like way back. So medicine 1.0 we're not going to really talk about. Medicine 2.0 is our current healthcare system and what it focuses on. And back in the day, medicine 2.0 was fantastic, and it's still fantastic in terms of short-term acute type injuries or diseases where you're short-term, they fix you and you are better. So if you break your leg or you tear your shoulder, they fix your shoulder, they fix your leg. If you have a short-term infection or something, you go on antibiotics and you're better. But most of the medicine that we deal with nowadays is long-term chronic illness, and medicine 2.0 just really does not meet those needs. So medicine 2.0 was created way back when we didn't have antibiotics, right? And people were dying of disease and things that they didn't need to die of. So it's the advancement in healthcare with medicine 2.0 as we know it today it's fantastic. Antibiotics, vaccines, surgeries, aseptic technique, all the things that used to kill us back in the day doesn't do that anymore. So you got to say that's 2.0 at its best. But in our society now, we don't tend to die from infections anymore. We don't tend to get eaten by saber-toothed tigers and things like that, and are running and and most of us are not living on the farm and things like that. And so then our problems have changed. We are living longer, but we're living longer with a whole bunch of illnesses. So now medicine 2.0 is a problem for most of us, and yet that is our current healthcare system today. So if you go to the doctor and you don't have, they do blood work on you and everything's fine, yet they can see that you're, 200 pounds or 300 pounds, and they know you're eating terrible and you don't exercise, but nothing really gets done. And then slowly we start to creep up with all those little diseases or little side effects and symptoms of chronic disease. Once we start to show symptoms is when 2.0 starts to step in, and so that's when the doctors start to give you blood pressure medicine or statins, or they give you medicine for pre-diabetes and things like that. But sadly, by the time that happens, we are long past probably getting the help that we need at that point, right? Then it's just managing a fire because we've created a problem that is not going to work with the medicines that we have today. But the way that the healthcare system works, the doctors today, they don't get paid to just tell you to eat better and exercise. They get paid to put you on medication. And so it's just a really backward system. So Dr. Attia talks about medicine 2.0 and then how he really thinks we should be in medicine 3.0, but most of us don't live like that. So with 2.0, he talks about the 4 horsemen. And so he says what happens is, and we talked about this at the last talk that we did, there's this chart here. I think this can see it. I don't know if you guys can all see that. So this chart, we talked about this in the first one, right? So normally, before even medicine 2.0, we had this solid line. So we would start here. This is about where we would die, right? So we would not make it into our 80s and 90s. We would die earlier. Then we created medicine 2.0. So now what we've done with medicine 2.0 and drugs and all those kind of things with all the medications we take, we've come to here where we're on this track. Most of us, not just a few of us, are on this track right here where we live till we're about in our 70s to 75, and then we lose about 50% capacity at that point, and then it's just a slow, agonizing death. Medicine 2.0 comes in down here where we live our last 20 years, 10 years, depending how long you have, here. So we've extended life expectancy from here to here, so maybe from 70 to 80, but down here where we are not living our life. So this is 100%, this is where we're super healthy, this is where we barely are healthy, right? Lots of injury or illness and disease. So they've extended our life with the current healthcare system that we live in, but most of us go here, and then we spend the last 10, 20 years of our lives on what he calls the slow death with the 4 horsemen. So we'll talk about that. So then, if we just asked, the average person today and said, how would you like to live your life? And I've got that up there, right? How would you like to live? What do you see your life as 75 years old? None of us would say, oh yeah, like I want diabetes and I'm hoping to be in a nursing home by the time I'm 80. None of us say that. And none of us would say, we would all be saying, I'm going to travel, I'm going to hike, I'm going to play with my grandkids, I'm going to climb upstairs, I'm still going to be able to go shopping when I'm 85, and yet the reality of that is most of us are down here, and that is not happening. So then what he talks about is medicine 3.0. So medicine 3.0 is what our challenge is, and what I sort of try to talk about all the time in here is if we can do for ourselves rather than letting healthcare try to do what they are trying to do for us, and we become proactive in our health, hopefully this happens. This just brings me to, did anybody remember, what was his name? Jack LaLanne? Jack LaLanne. So somebody sent that to me the other day that he passed away. And it was, if anybody saw that article that got posted, he was 96 years old. And I remember him back in the day. He was the guy that really started talking about how important strength and conditioning was, like not just going and running, but actually like weightlifting, and that it was important for women. So that was like, he was one of the first guys out there to say women have to lift weights, not just guys. So then it talked about his life and how he lived his life till the age of 96. He literally was this guy, right? He lived to here. Who knows? I think he died of a heart attack, but who knows? He was 96, so he died. But he died and fell off a cliff. But that's how we want to die, right? I don't want to die here. So there were some people, somebody said, oh my gosh, I wonder if he had a heart attack. He probably did. He was 96. So he fell off the cliff, and I'm assuming that's how we all want to be. But when you went through the whole thing of what he did in his life, it's everything we're doing. He talked about how much water he used to drink. He talks about exercising every day. He doesn't talk about zone 2 in the word zone 2, but he talks about how he lifted weights every single day, and then he'd always go for a swim or a run for 45 minutes after he did that, every single day of his life. How he ate healthy, he ate clean, wouldn't eat processed food, never ate sugar, never drank alcohol. it was just incredible. So you're just like, that's what I'm trying to do and trying to teach people is, yeah, like, don't you want to fall off a cliff at 96? I would rather do that. Tia talks a lot about that and uses this chart, okay? So the 4 horsemen of death, or the 4 horsemen, which he calls the slow death, which is the medicine 2.0. So he said most people today, the majority of people today can expect to die in their 70s and 80s, and almost all of them from slow causes. So we're not dying from car accidents and stuff like that, most of us, right? We're all dying of these slow death causes, and they call them the slow death because you don't just abruptly get an infection and die, you slowly decrease your capacity to live. So heart disease is one of them, right? It's the biggest killer out there. So there's heart disease, cancer, obviously, neurodegenerative diseases. So we're seeing that all the time, right? Alzheimer's is being called the new diabetes. So none of these things used to be a problem until our current life today, right? So Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, memory disorders, so dementia, and then type 2 diabetes and all the related metabolic dysfunction with that. So those are the 4 big things that people die from, and most of us that is going to be our future. So that's what I'm trying to prevent for myself and for the people around me. So sadly, if you look at what he talks about, the 4 horsemen, we have put billions of dollars into trying to solve these problems in healthcare dollars, and yet very little progress. So if you look again at this chart, that's our progress. So instead of maybe dying up here, we're dying a little bit we're living a little bit longer, but our capacity is like at 10-20% of our 100% capacity. So that's what medicine 2.0 has done. So if you get diabetes, yeah, you're going to live a little bit longer with the medicines we have today, but you're not going to cure it. You're not going to not have diabetes someday and live a long, healthy, happy life, right? So that's what we're trying to focus on. So we're just intervening at the wrong time. So instead of waiting and going to the doctor and finally him going, oh my gosh, your A1C is too high and you're pre-diabetic and we have to start doing all these things. Instead of doing that, what he's talking about is we have to intervene today, right? So we have to intervene with what we're doing in here. So this challenge is just all 3.0 driven. So doing it now before you have heart disease, before you have diabetes, because sadly, these diseases are 20, 30, 40 years in the making. So none of us go to the doctor one day and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, you have diabetes, like out of the blue. You didn't just get diabetes today. You didn't just get high blood pressure today. You didn't just get high lipids or those triglycerides today. Those were like 20, 30, 40 years ago. So all of the damage right now that we're doing to ourselves is just slowly building, hopefully not in here, but for most people out there is just slowly building. The little symptoms start to come. But remember, our doctors can't really prescribe things until you're exactly at this point. So as soon as you meet this number, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, we got to put you on medication. But 2 numbers under that, we didn't have to put you on medication. That makes no sense, right? So they knew the fire's there, the fire's burning, but if it's like 5 numbers below what they accept for medication, you don't go on medication. But the next time you go, they're like, oh yeah, we got to put you on medication now. But it's too late at that point. The bleeding has started and it's not going to stop, sadly. So we are going to focus on medicine 3.0. So in this challenge, all the things that he talks about with medicine 3.0, which is exercise, nutrition, sleep, emotional health, and wellness, those are all things that we're trying. I didn't focus on sleep in this challenge. We have done that in the past, but not to say it's any less important than all of it. But the things we're doing in here is medicine 3.0, taking charge of yourself. And so what I really loved, he talked about this. So as a nurse, when I was way back, a long time ago in nursing school, and when I was doing my degree in nursing, in Canada, their healthcare system is a little bit different than down here because it's a socialized medicine up there. So they would rather see you stay healthy because they don't have the money to fix you when you're not healthy. Our system is obviously different down here because we are tied to pharmaceuticals and the drug companies and food industry and all that. But up there it's different. So as much as I don't like their healthcare system, I did love the way I learned nursing, and so then it skewed me for the hospitals though, because it was all about how do you keep people healthy, how do you keep them in their homes. So then I was in the hospitals as a hospital nurse and knew right away that was not going to be for me. So I spent most of my time when I did nurse is in home care and public health, because then I could try to help people at that point. But in the hospitals, we are just literally just trying to bandage people up and get them out the door. That's just the focus. So he talks about the difference between 2.0 and 3.0. 2.0, you are a passive passenger in your health. You let others, doctors, decide how you'll be treated with regards to healthcare decisions and how you live your life. This is an easier way to live your life, but unfortunately the outcomes will be out of your control. So most of us choose that, right? We just let the doctors put us on medication. We don't have to go out and exercise. He'll just give us some stuff that'll bring down our blood sugars. And so that's easier. That's what most of us choose to be, is passive with our health. 3.0 demands much more from you, which is kind of what's in this gym. You have to be well informed, knowledge is power, and clear about your goals. So part of what I'm trying to do with this speaker series is, I try to do that all the time in here, but right now in this specific moment is trying to give you the knowledge so that you can make the choices and understand why it is we're doing what we're doing, and then it'll be up to you to decide, am I going to sustain this past 75 days or past whenever you're not in this gym someday. So knowledge is power. Willing to change ingrained habits. That's why we've designed the challenge for 75 days. I did think when we did 75 hard that was an amount of time where finally you are like, okay, this habit could be something I could do for a long period of time. 30 days is usually not enough time to change something. Usually you kind of white knuckle it, and then when it's over, you're back to what you were trying to do before. So you got to be willing to change those ingrained habits. You've got to be willing to accept new challenges. So I'm challenging you all the time in here, and in this challenge right now, I'm challenging you with zone 2 because that's something we haven't done in the past. Listen to the science. I mean, most people just don't, right? They just ignore it and they just live their lives passively. Be an active participant in your healthcare decisions. I think that's just the most important thing, is to not allow some of the doctors. Some of them are fantastic, but most of them come from a medical 2.0 background, and so it's not necessarily their fault. It's just how they're taught. But be active in that. With my mom and my grandma and stuff, I'm always struggling with the whole, doctors are not God. You have to be looking out for yourself and doing what's best for you. Listening obviously to the information, but then making those decisions for yourself. And then confront problems when they arise. So this is all 3.0, because sometimes we do have health issues that come up, and lots of us just want to not deal with those and not pay attention to those. And if you are starting to see the problems, what am I going to do to fix those, right? So ultimately, you need to be captain of your own ship, and that's just so important. But it's hard, right? It is so much easier to live on the couch eating fast food than be in the gym and go home and cook a healthy meal. And that's what we all struggle with, and it's so much easier, and our society is designed to the point where it's just way easier to do that. And that's when, even in the challenge, people are having a hard time. I don't know how to get this, I don't know how to do this, I don't have time for that. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be hard, but the rewards are going to be huge, right? So keep asking yourself that question. How do you want to live your life in your 60s, your 70s, your 80s, even your 90s? So if you're Jack LaLanne or Lelaine, 96, right? Most of us would be like, I'm not even focusing on 90. But I think if you listen to what Natia is saying and how you live your life, it is very attainable. None of us would choose to live in the nursing home, but we certainly would choose to live at home and be active and be a participant in our family and surroundings if we were healthy. Okay, so we've kind of talked about this already. Oh, so the one thing I also wanted to talk about, so I have that up on the board, health savings account. So he was the one that talked about this a while ago, and this is probably what sort of made me start to follow him, because that just made so much sense. So we, as a society, focus on, right at a young age, you got to start saving for your financial future, right? So your first job, you start putting away money for your future so that you can retire and you'll actually have some money when you retire. So he talks about your health savings account. So we focus so much on saving money for our financial future, and we start to do it at a young age. Our health savings account, or our health, is exactly the same way. So if we don't start saving for our financial future till we're 60 years old, then we're probably not going to have that much money when we're going to retire. Or if we're 60 and we're like, okay, I need some money to retire, we're going to have to put a lot of money into our savings account, right? So that we have money when we retire at whatever, 70 years. We're going to retire when we're 70. So we have to put more away so that we can retire. So it's the same with our health. If you start if you're living a super active life when you're 20 and you continue to live a super active life all the way till you're 70 and 80, then all of that banks up, right? And you will live a long, healthy life. But if you don't start till our age and we're in the gym doing this, then we have to work a little bit harder. So you have to also think, we are all going to die. We're all declining, right? So the minute you're born, you're already on the track of eventually someday, whatever, hopefully 95 years later, you're going to die. But as we get older, 30, 40 years old, that track is becoming much more evident of how you're going to decrease your capacity as you get older. So then we have to work that much harder. So when somebody tells me, I can't get in here more than twice a week, I'm like, okay, well, that's better than zero. But is it going to be enough so that you can live your life at 90? It's just sadly not. So is it better than zero? Yes. But that would be like saying, I'm going to save $10, a paycheck. It's better than zero, but is it going to be enough for me to retire when I want to retire and live the life that I want to live when I retire? Probably not. So that's what I try to tell people is you do what's going to work for you, and we're all busy and I get it, but it is literally the most important thing, because if you don't have it, your health changes how you get to live your life. And those decisions will be made for you if you don't make those decisions today. So if you don't put lots in your health savings account, and that means you are active every single day. It doesn't mean you have to be in the gym every day, but you have to be active every single day. The zone 2, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, doing that, the eating healthy, the sleeping well, all of that kind of stuff adds up, and you have to do it well. And if you want your life to look a certain way at when you're 80 and 90, then you have to live your life up here, because we're all declining, right? No matter what, no matter how healthy we are, we're all on the decline to death, sadly. So then you have to live up here. You can't live here, because then the decline of death is way down here. And so your decline of life is not going to be, that's where you're going to be in the nursing home and all of that kind of stuff. So if you have a sense of how you want to live your life, which we're all going to be the same, we want to travel, we want to look after our grandkids, we want to do all these things. If you want to be able to walk in an airport, right? You want to be able to walk upstairs, you have to have the capacity and the strength to do it. So you have to live up here. 2 times a week in the gym is not enough. Being, 300 pounds is not going to be enough, unfortunately. So it's going to be, I'm working out every day, or active every day, eating well every day, cooking healthy, all those things every day, so that hopefully when I am losing capacity, it's not down here, but it's rather more here, okay? So the health savings account, so then he talks about as well, most of us, probably, all of us can say we were guilty of that at one time in our lives. I probably was. We choose wealth before health. So we put all of our emphasis into our careers and raising our kids and busy and trying to make more money. But if you can't enjoy your money, which many of us cannot do, because by the time you're able to enjoy it, you're already declining and losing your capacity. The one thing that my dad taught me, sadly in death, he was going to be that guy that would have retired at 55. He was a firefighter. He was on his plane. He was on his path to retire, and sadly he died of cancer when he was 53. But he was going to live his life, and so I just am always like, you just don't know what tomorrow's going to be, right? And so you just have to live the best you can, health before wealth, because your health is going to change how you live your life as you get older. And so it won't matter if you have $1 million in the bank at that point. You won't get to enjoy it. So it's just so important. Okay, we talked about that. So the tactics that the challenge is doing. So he talks about exercise. We already talked about this. Nutrition, sleep, emotional health. Those are all we did. We aren't doing sleep. We are going to talk about it in this thing, and we are going to talk about emotional health. But it's not part of the challenge. It's just too much to try to get people to do. But exercise, as you can see at the top, according to him, according to all the studies out there, I used to think it was nutrition first, exercise second. It is absolutely exercise first in terms of longevity and capacity, in terms of how you live your life. Exercise, move every single day. Does not diminish the importance of nutrition, but in terms of longevity, you have to be strong and you have to have a good capacity, good VO2 to be able to live long. Otherwise, that won't happen. So nutrition is super important in terms of health and disease and all of that kind of thing. But exercise is what's going to help you live a healthy life in terms of longevity. So in here, we are focused on that so you're going to exercise every day. Again, that was one thing where some people are like, I can't do that. Okay, so if you were exercising 3 times a week, then let's try 4 or 5, or let's add some of that zone 2 in there, right? So we're going to go to zone 2 because that is the one that's the new thing that we put in, or I've put into the gym, is the zone 2, and people are doing really well with it. So I just want to make sure you understand what zone 2 is, how it looks, and then why are we doing it. I do see some people trying to piece zone 2 together where they're just trying to check a box. Okay, I did it. I want you to try to adapt zone 2 into your life so that it's there forever. So yes, I want you to do it for 75 days and do it 3 times a week at minimum. But can you do this for the rest of your life? Because the health benefits are pretty huge, okay? So what does zone 2 do? It improves our VO2. So VO2 is how we utilize oxygen in our body. So somebody that is very fit would have a high level of VO2. So Steve would have a really high level of VO2. Kale would have a really high level, well, most of us in here, but those two, they work out, Jess, Abby, they work out a lot and would have really high levels of VO2, right? And the higher your VO2, the higher your capacity, and the better you can do, or better you can perform. So it'll help you, again, live longer with the higher VO2, because if you want to walk upstairs, if you want to walk through an airport, if you want to get off the ground, all those things, you have to have a VO2 capacity. But in here, just pure and simple, just being in the gym, if you want to perform better in here, you have to have a better VO2. So if you want to do better, be fitter, you have to be able to utilize oxygen. And so then that's what the VO2, that's what it does for VO2. So it improves that. Then it also, so lots of people, which I've talked to them about, it's the fat burning zone. And that is super important for some people in here as what their goals were. So if your goal in this challenge is to lose weight and you're just like, you know what, I know it helps my VO2, but that's not what I'm concerned about right now. I need to lose some body fat. Then that zone, right, the more you're in that zone 2, the more fat burning that you have. What we do in here for those high intensity workouts, we're more in a glucose burning phase right there, and so then we don't burn fat like that. Doesn't mean it's not beneficial. We have to do both of it. But if you want the fat burning, if you want to help try to lose a little bit of body fat, then that zone 2 is going to help you do that as well. The part for me that's super important is how it improves our mitochondrial function. So mitochondria are the little organisms that live inside of our cells. They determine how healthy we are. They determine how we age. So they age just like we age. And so if we are aging poorly and not doing the right things, then our mitochondria are aging poorly and they are not working properly in our body. So if our mitochondria are not working properly, then we age a lot faster than somebody that is. So then we get the diseases that go along with aging. So the mitochondria, that's for me the most important part, right? While we're in zone 2, that is the most important phase for the mitochondria. Not to say that all the other phases, again, don't help them in terms of zone 3, 4, and 5. All of it helps them. But the most effect in terms of trying to improve your mitochondrial function, trying to promote and restore and build new mitochondria happens in zone 2. So just all I'm saying with that is just take it seriously when you're trying to sort of fit this into the challenge. I didn't put it in there just so that you can check a box and go, okay, I've got my points. And then at day 75, you'll be like, thank God I'm done that. I'm never doing that again. I want you to try to figure out, how can I do this? So we need the weightlifting. We need the high intensity. We do that a lot in here, obviously, but we also need that zone 2 that we were kind of missing. So I'm trying hard to put that in. So that's why it's in the challenge. But make it fit you too, right? So just don't try to like piece it together and do something that you know you won't be doing in 75 days. If you like the bike, use the bike. If you like walking and you can figure out how to get into zone 2 walking, then go do that. If you can run and you're fit enough to, I can't run and be in zone 2, but if you can, then fantastic. So figure out what works for you. And do it. The one good thing with zone 2 is it can be the same thing every day. I always talk about high intensity, that we got to challenge our muscles. We got to do all these different things with our muscles and work at different capacities with our lungs, and we do. That's all super beneficial. And so we want to change it up so our body's always trying to adapt to what we're doing in here, which is why we are always doing different stuff in here. But zone 2, your body does it. It's just like, it just wants to see your heart rate in a certain spot. So if you want to bike or ski or bike or row or walk every single day and do that for the whole challenge, by all means, go ahead and do that. So we are doing 3 workouts, or that's what's required of you. You don't have to do it, but that's what it's asking you. 3 30-minute workouts. Hopefully over the course of this, what I would like for me too, because I'm trying to get 4, but I'm not doing a very good job of it. But ideally you want probably 4 a week, and hopefully even longer than 30 minutes. So we are doing the bare minimum, and so that just trying to get people to do it, and that's fantastic, and I know people are busy. So at the bare minimum, we're doing 3 times a week, 30 minutes. But if you can, try to get that 4th, and try to like upwards of 30 or 45, even an hour. If you can. I know it's hard to ask people to do that, but the benefits, the science just shows that an hour to an hour and a half is really like the absolute most benefit you can get, like 4 times a week. But then you also have to be like, okay, I've only got so much time in my life. So we have to all be like, I don't have time to do that. So there's benefit, lots of benefit to 30 minutes 3 times a week, which is why I put that in there. Just work to get that, and if someday you have more time to do something, then don't think it's not worth your time to sit on the bike for an hour if you happen to have an hour that day to do it, okay? The more you do, the healthier you are, the fitter you're going to be. All right, I think that's it. Questions? Oh yeah, football still sucks. Okay, any questions?
So we're gonna have its own 2 opportunity at track.
Oh yes.
So, and if you you can't run, I found that rucking, really works really well to do a zone 2. Like I rucked here on Sunday, and I ran but I kept pretty much in zone 2 most of the time, except for going up the hills. So at the track, I solved that problem. So anyway.
So Steve's actually been great, because he has said, because he's doing that endurance class on Wednesday, so he's going to try to put part of it as zone 2 every Wednesday to help people through the challenge, and then add some other stuff to it. So it's a way for you to be able to go either coming in here. Last week they were in here on the machines. This week they're going up. The weather's obviously beautiful. So take advantage of things like that. And then, so he's got that in here, which is fantastic, or on Wednesdays in that endurance class. And then I've been trying to be as, whatever the word is, I've been trying to allow people to come in and do it whenever they ask. So if they're like, hey, can I come in and grab, the Echo bikes are fantastic, stick them in the corner, I have no problem doing that. And so I've been trying to be as accommodating as I can. Mobility is another class where you can do your mobility and then do your zone 2 afterwards if you want. I'm trying to be as accommodating as I can inside the gym, and Steve has obviously given his endurance class over to zone 2 as well. It's just really important, so I'm just trying to make it as available for people as possible. So if you don't have any more questions, then that's it. If you do have any questions afterwards and you want to stay and ask me a question, please do. Again, with the whole challenge, my challenge is keeping 45 people doing the challenge for 75 days, because that doesn't typically happen. So that will be my challenge, is trying to get everybody to keep doing the challenge. All right. we're out.